think 200 million people watch the Super Bowl, 1.5 billion watch the World Cup final. That's why the World Cup reigns supreme, because it delivers something far more than the mere sport. It delivers global connectivity in the most positive way. I've watched the rise of the game in the United States, World Cup to World Cup, and I wanted to write a book which is a love letter to the tournament. I know millions of Americans are going to watch this event, which is like a solar eclipse, which engulfs the entire planet simultaneously for its duration. But I wanted to write it in a personal way that gave readers everything they want to know to enhance their enjoyment of the World Cup. They will be watching. And I hope it's a book that you can take away, your Messi from your Maradona, understand the soul of Brazilian football, understand the self-sabotaging DNA of the English. It's essentially everything you need to know to enjoy these 39 days. And also, the narrative of the rise of the game in the United States is a great subplot. We always joke on our show is that soccer is America's sport of the future, as it has been since 1972. Always the next big thing. And I hope this World Cup 2026, I know this World Cup will be the moment where it's the sport of the future no more. Well, so much has changed. 1994, the last time the Men's World Cup was in the United States, it was meant to turn America immediately overnight into a soccer-loving nation. It's still the best attended World Cup of all time, but it was like a big circus that came and went. And the book and my experience here in the United States, because I arrived before the 94 World Cup, has been watching the popularity of this game instead of being an overnight success, which honestly would have been possibly a disaster. It would have been like a fad, like a pogo stick or a yo-yo, something that came in and went out like a trend. Instead, every single World Cup, the roots, the passion, the size of the audience has grown. The rise of the Premier League on the men's side has led the popularity to explode here so that American audiences can follow the men's game week to week, like the telenovela lived out in real time, like the rest of the world. And by 2026, really, post 2010, since we've been broadcasting on the Men in Blazers media network, we've seen this audience. It's young, it's passionate, it's deeply connected. They'll have men's football, women's football. There's an enormous Hispanic audience that we've also created shows for. And there's just a deeply complicated, wonderful, passionate football audience now in the United States, which is almost a mirror of the entire nation itself. And that's its true beauty. The book is in many ways a meditation on the power of sports. Ultimately, the power, for me, the true power of the World Cup is that it transcends sports, which is when sports is at its best. When two teams take the field in World Cup play, men's or women's World Cup, their nation's histories, their nation's politics, their nation's cultures take the field alongside them. It's that fusion of the sporting and the deeper levels. It makes the storytelling around the World Cup so unbelievably epic, so poetic, so multi-layered. Walt Whitman, who I think would have been, I like to think, a real football fan, I think he would have said the tournament contains multitudes. And that's it. We're watching humanity really expose itself in the crucible of global pressure. I think 200 million people watch the Super Bowl, 1.5 billion watch the World Cup final. So you're seeing human beings at the elite of the game live out their decision-making in real time, like the greatest telenovela, without a script, acted out live under conditions of hysterical pressure. And that's ultimately it. That's why the World Cup reigns supreme, because it delivers something far more than the mere sport. It delivers global connectivity in the most positive way, which is, when Lionel Messi against Mbappe, Kylian Mbappe in that 2022 final, when they went, head to head, just scoring goals left and the right, lifting their nations, one of them knowing they would end defeated, the other knowing they'd leave immortal. We were all watching. We all felt alive, and the globe felt deeply connected in the most passionate way, which in our day and age is an all too rare occurrence. I think that ultimately in there is the true wonder. I can think of 2 World Cups for France that I wrote about. 1982, where they got into the semi-final and lost valiantly, cruelly to Germany. And I was in France at the time of that World Cup, and I write about it as a kid, watching the French. They almost felt validated by this loss. A Frenchman said to me after that defeat, and they cheered it. I remember being in a bar and they danced after the defeat because it was a loss with honor, which was like the French code. They didn't think of themselves as winners. They thought about themselves as petit France, little France. Of course, we're not going to win the World Cup, but the best we can do is lose valiantly with honor. And then along came Zidane, who lifted this just multiracial team, the most dynamic and beautiful vision of France at the time, to be honest, when there was real ethnic tension within France, with the far right under Le Pen taking ascendancy, and they beat Brazil in 1998 deliriously on home turf. And you saw the whole nation of France, because of a football game, because of 11 men kicking a ball wearing polyester in cleats, you saw an entire French nation rise up and see themselves differently as a France qui gagne, a France who could win, a France who could be dominant in Europe, a France who could feel that they could be the ultimate victors. Watching the scenes after that World Cup win, as the Arc de Triomphe had Zidane's face, this son of Algerian immigrants into the nation, beamed on its side, and everyone chanted Zidane for president. Within there, you can see the power of the thing, validating an identity in the 80s. There was a noble France, a little France, and then late 90s, the France that it wanted to be, an aspirational winner on the world stage. That's the power of this tournament. And not just for France. You saw it with Argentina in 2022, the millions of Argentinians dancing after Messi delivered victory, when inflation was running rampant, the economy was imploding, and it was honestly football that allowed Argentina to announce itself on a world stage in which they no longer felt potently able in any other way. That's the beauty of what we're watching. It's sports, transcending sports, which is always when the game's at its best. Yeah, I think my first memory watching Argentina World Cup 1978, growing up in England, in Liverpool, football was a muddy game, a violent game, a dank game. And watching football far away live, watching the stadiums explode with confetti and toilet rolls flung down onto the footballers as they took the field in a cacophony of ebullience. I turned to my mum and dad as a kid. I said, "Oh my God, look at this. Football can be joyful." And it was utterly, utterly mesmerizing. It was painful memories. Diego Maradona, the Argentinian wonder, faced up to my English heroes and beat them in means fair and foul in a World Cup in which he used his hand to score a goal. And afterwards was asked, "Did you use your hand?" He said it was a little bit Diego and a little bit the hand of God. He was brilliant at PR. And then minutes later, while we were reeling, he scored one of the best goals I have ever seen, where he destroyed the whole team with his dribbling. One goal foul, breathtaking, brazen. The other, just an ebullient moment of transcendence. It was excruciating when I was a child. This man had destroyed my heroes in the wake of the Falkland War as well. So it was all the levels of that defeat were utterly crushing. But I've come to realize that pain I felt as an 11-year-old. I went outside and kicked my own soccer ball through the family's front room. And as the glass tinkled to the floor, my dad just nodded and said, "I feel your pain, Roger. I feel your pain." I now have off camera a signed by Maradona photograph of him punching the ball in against England, because I've come to realize that the pain, the memory, the agony, it's such a powerful and formative memory. You actually realize it was an honor to watch him do that to England. It was an ecstatic and deeply profound memory ultimately. And again, it reminds you that these memories you make through football, this little game, are some of the most moving and formative that you have. Well, I've got to say, even though I sound like I'm English, I am now American. I became watching the 2014 World Cup, which we broadcast for ESPN from Rio. I made a vow live on television that if the United States would get out of their group, I would become an American citizen. They did, and I did. And it's still probably the most magical act that I will ever achieve in my lifetime. So even though I sound like I'm from Liverpool, which I am, I cheer for the United States, probably even more than Kenny Powers cheers. Proof of that is at the last World Cup on a live stream, we watched England play the United States live with Matthew McConaughey. And I want you to know I cheered for the United States even more than Matthew McConaughey, and he's like at Springsteen levels. So I am a US fan. I'm happy to talk about that. England, and this is one of the narratives of the book. I think was it Freud who said that a boy becomes a man when he realized that his gods have clay feet. I realized pretty quickly as a kid watching the English national team that they were only going to bring me misery. And so I gave up on them pretty early. Coming from Liverpool also, that's always felt a complicated relationship with the rest of England. So I am an American fan. England, they were fascinating. And I watch them with wonder because they bring my family joy. And I root, I root for them only in that, I know the pleasure that they bring to my lovely mother and my late dad. So God bless England. Oh, Lord, it's a long conversation. Look, it's to be candid, it's shocking to say that the United States, we put a man on the moon, we invented the krona, our women kick ass and take names, and our men have won one knockout game ever in our nation's history. You do see these smaller nations rise up. Uruguay, tiny population, going deep into the tournament. We saw Morocco out of nowhere, a dark horse, just rise up and ride deliriously into the semi-final. You watch the US and you wonder, why never us? We have never had a better man for man, person for person, more successful squad than we have now. Big players playing real minutes on super teams, playing in serious European football competitions. Question is how we are when we come together as a collective. We do not yet know. And you ask me, what do they need? More than anything, we just need to believe in ourselves. When you speak to players of Europe, when they took the field in big games in the World Cup and you speak to them individually off the record and you say, when you took the field against insert superpower team in a knockout game, did you really believe you were going to win? And they'll say, honestly, in my heart of hearts, I did not. And so that's what needs to change. These players are fantastic. They know they can change the game. They know they can become famous forever. Immortality awaits for the American player that scores a big goal in a big game on home turf. The belief that we can do this is what needs to change. My Lord, if I was given one wish, I'd just love to see the United States win a knockout game again in my lifetime. The favourites are Spain and France. England always believe that they're a favourite, so I just have to throw them in because of self-delusion. So those are the teams. We'll see Lionel Messi potentially, probably, almost certainly go for a sixth World Cup. And it will be magnificent to watch him play a World Cup with the pressure off. He had to deliver for his nation. He did at the last one. Win or lose, to watch him exit the World Cup and to feel a sense of gratitude that we got to watch his magic in our lifetime. See him leave when they get knocked out, he always cries. And when you see a Messi tear, you realize what Prince meant when he said, "This is what it sounds like when doves cry." It's really, really beautiful. So those are probably the ones I'm most excited for. I think Norway are fascinating. A team that somehow did not qualify for an entire generation. They're back, loaded with Premier League talent, most notably a player, Erling Haaland, who, if you asked AI to create just a fearsome footballer, he's like Shaquille O'Neal in cleats when he joined the Orlando Magic and just started to smash backboards in the NBA. That's what it's like to watch Erling Haaland, him leading the line with this joyous, ebullient Norwegian team who just are so grateful to be back in this tournament with their nation watching. And we just see what they can do in the Winter Olympics. So I cannot wait to watch them as a collective do their thing. Oh, I'm contractually obliged to say Christian Pulisic. How's that as an American? I think that was a test. Who do I really think? I think the French young icon, Kylian Mbappe, is a man who, you've got to remember, this is another fascinating storyline. This is not just any old World Cup for these players. This is a World Cup where they know if they have a dizzying, deep run into the tournament, they can become household names in the United States commercially. The stakes are enormous for any player who becomes the face of this tournament. You think about how Pele in the 1970s became the face of the game in the United States. We are still, to these players, they know that football is like space to Captain Kirk, the final frontier. And so a motivated Kylian Mbappe wanting to win again with France, as he did in 2018, and then individually just become an iconic figure in the American sporting pantheon. It's going to be delicious to witness.